All right, folks, welcome to our difficult discussions today. What we're going to be talking about is asking your horse to give their all. All right, now that sounds pretty simple, but it's something that's been rattling around in my mind quite a bit here lately. And so that's what we're going to be kind of getting into is it really fair or even to require your horse to give their all? All right. And the reason I ask this a lot of times is because it's been a personal quest of mine that I've been on. I've actually been working with a sports psychologist on my own here lately, where I can tell that my horsemanship journey personally has been evolving very rapidly. I've learned the things that I've been able to learn and be able to communicate to my horses has just grown astronomically over the last several years. And every day I'm learning something new and how I can be more effective with communicating my horses. But I will be honest, there are times where I feel like I'm just kind of missing a certain piece. And it's that little bit of connection, and it's not just the connection on will your horse be with you, but it's building upon the connection of having a horse that is really well trained and very obedient and very understanding of their job, and having a horse that in their mind, body, and spirit they truly are with you 100% of the way. And that can be very, very gray, I think, in terms of what it feels like, what it looks like, and what it truly is. And you guys will see this is why these are going to be some difficult discussions, because it's one of those things that some of us may have experienced that in a very real form, and it's hard to put into words necessarily what that, because it's not a tangible thing. And I know that, and I felt like before I went on this quest of reaching out to a good friend and fellow equine sports psychologist to kind of help me sort through what might be holding me back in these areas. I've certainly learned a lot along those journeys. I'm going to share that with you guys in some other videos. But one of the things that did come up is it really fair to ask that of our horses? And the answer wasn't simply yes or no. And I don't think the answer is simply yes or no. But I think that it can be absolutely fair to ask our horses to give every bit of themselves to whatever we're asking them to do. But in order for us to be able to fairly ask that question, I think as our horse's leader, we have to then first look at ourselves and ask ourselves, what does that really mean? And am I doing everything that I can do to make this a fair and possible situation for the horse? And that is why I personally reached out down this path to kind of dive into my own mind, and which is a dangerous place, let me tell you. But I that's why I reached out to Dr. Paul Hafner, which is an equine sports psychologist, to help me with this, because I wasn't necessarily certain on what it was. I knew that when I watch horsemen that I look up to, you can tell they are very much connected. They have a partnership with their horses. And at times I feel like personally, like with mine along my journey, is that they've been very well trained and they're very obedient and they do enjoy their work, but are they 100% there? And to me, what does it mean for your horse to give their all? Well, I'm going to go into two different little aspects of that. And one of the sides is that, I share with clients and I share with other horsemen when I'm training horses. Like if I'm sitting on my horse and then I need them to do something, and let's say you're sitting on your horse riding around a warm up arena, because that usually can be the most dangerous damn place to ride your horses in a warm up, because there's all these other people buzzing around not paying attention. They're looking down at their horse's head, and they're not looking where they're going. They're definitely not concerned about what you're doing. They're just on their own little planet. Say somebody comes off in the warm-up and the horse is loose and all these people are scattered around. If I need my horse to go from a resting, standing still position to a straight lead departure out the gate and say, hey, buddy, we got to get out of here now. And I go and I ask him kind of abruptly, I'm like, hey, let's go, let's go, let's go. I don't need them to flip me the bird, or I don't need them to retaliate. Are they justified? Maybe. Is there a place for it? No, because I need to know that my horse is going to be there for me. And how do you get to that place? Well, at first, you don't put your horse in a position they're not prepared for. And I don't want to make this a horse training video, but you wouldn't put your horse in that position if they're not prepared to, if you don't have them prepared to be successful in that environment. Well, we also have to then know, how deep does that go with our horses? How, if we ask more of our horses, are they going to be willing, or are they going to have maybe some mental hangups, and maybe they're not so willing, maybe they are absolutely against what we have to suggest or to ask of them, right? And we've all seen horses that get pretty grouchy, or they even do other things like kick at the leg, or they buck, or they rear, and there's all sorts of reasons for those things. But sometimes it is a bit of a protest against what the rider is asking. And when I think of asking my horses to give their all, that is mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Asking them. And so when as a leader, I think we have to look at ourselves, and we have to ask ourselves, am I giving everything of myself mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually? Am I and I don't want to use balance as because everyone has their own sense of balance, but there is a bit of a balancing act in being able to then connect with our horses to such the degree, because if we really look at connection with our horses, there is an ability to get things done built upon connection and partnership, that even if a horse is not, maybe a horse's education goes to a certain extent, and maybe a horse's education is at a 5, right? Just call it a 5, and it's 1 out of 10, and say a horse's education is a 5. But with a strong partnership and connection with a horse, someone might be able to do things that would be exemplified at a 7, right? And so I do believe that connection and partnership can take things to a whole new level. And as a horse trainer for the public, for other people, I have been very cognizant with this, because with my training horses, I know that over a period of time I will develop a partnership and a connection with these horses, but I need these horses to be trained well enough to understand their jobs, be willing to do their jobs, be willing to take a joke from other people that get on that maybe now don't know exactly how to hit all the right buttons, right? But the horses need to understand how to do their jobs, be willing to do it, and they need to be able to do that, because not necessarily surely based on a partnership, but because they understand their jobs. And then I tell my owners, when you go home, one of the best things you can do is to spend time with your horse and go build that relationship and build that connection, because that'll make far more things possible, as well as you also expand your education and your understanding on how to operate your horse and how to further your own horsemanship. But this idea of partnership and connection and asking all of our horses, I think, is something that is really important, because like I was saying a minute ago, when I look at horsemen that I really look up to, when you watch them ride and you talk to them, you can tell that with their horses, where that means that's a horse that they are going to show and it is their mount, or maybe it is a horse that they own themselves, they truly possess this, and they're able to get this going with a green colt fairly early on. And as I started working with Dr. Hafner through a lot of this, I remember after the first session, I really started to realize, like, based on a few things that he had said and we had discussed, him and I both agreed that horses aren't necessarily a mirror to your soul. Like, that's not always true. Horses might exemplify certain tendencies. You might own 3 horses, and 3 horses do something consistently, all 3 of them, based on the way you interact with them. But that's probably more about how you are consistent and how you work with them, and not necessarily a mirroring thing, but maybe a habitual deal. And so we talked about that a little bit, but we also discussed, was it fair to ask this question of them? And when I started this video, I do think that it is fair, but when we look at ourselves mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, are we there 100%? Because later on in some of my sessions with Dr. Hafner, we started talking about where people exist. Some people exist, and you talk to people, and they'll spend more time living in the past, Or some people are very good at living life in the present. And then you have other folks that might be physically present, but they're mentally out in the future. They're working on things for down the road. That's me, right? Now, when I get with my horses, I kind of close the world off a little bit. And I'm there with my horses in that moment. But on a very deeper level, sometimes we all have busy lives. We all have a lot going on. And a lot of times, not always a lot of times, but sometimes I'll physically be there with my horses, but there might be just a slight, and I mean, I am nitpicking, but just a slight piece where my mind subconsciously in the back might be on something else. And I think our horses are in tune enough that they pick up on that. And so for me personally, I do believe that it is fair to ask them to give their all. But we too have to give our all every day in our daily habits with our horses. We have to work on ourselves mentally. We have to work on ourselves physically. We have to work on ourselves emotionally, and we have to work on ourselves spiritually. I think those 4 pillars are something that are very fundamental in how horses operate, that they do have a spiritual character about them and a spiritual element to them, that they do have emotions, and that we do need to understand their emotions, we need to respect their emotions, and we need to work with them. We need to be fair and consistent leaders that provide consistency to them. We need to be able to provide them with the leadership that they need. We need to be clear in how we communicate and what we expect of them, and then we need to be understanding that are our expectations fair based on what they understand, how strong they are, wherever they are at mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And physically, of course, like I already said, they need to be strong, hopefully sound body and all those things. And mentally, we need to try. I always am a big fan of, building a partnership with them, but also them being confident within themselves and not dependent on us for the confidence, but building that confidence within them. And so kind of, guys, as we go through this, is it really fair to ask them to give their all? I definitely think it is, but along this journey for myself, I've kind of learned that we have to be very honest with ourselves first, because this topic is a difficult discussion for me, because it is it's thinking about things at such a high level that it's not merely, will my horse come up to me in the round pen, or does my horse nicker at me when I walk in the barn? Those things make you feel good, no doubt. But this is, my horse wants to be with me, and my horse truly understands their job. My horse is confident and trusting to where they're not afraid to try to do something. Like if the horse is trying to figure something out, that they are willing to try something, and they know that you will give them the chance to try it, and you can build upon those things, and they understand if they make a misstep that you're not going to crucify them. You might redirect them to help them understand, like, hey, that wasn't quite it. But it is a true partnership. And I don't think that this is common. I don't think that it is a piece. I don't think it's a piece where people might say, yes, my horse gives me a 100%, but I think that it's a rarity. I think it is truly a rarity, and I think that in order for this to work out, in order for it to be possible with our horses, we ourselves have to have such a great degree of self-awareness and discipline and healthy structure in our lives that work for us, that it becomes possible. We have to have a strong foundation in our lives so that this is a possibility for our horses. I think our horses will give it to us damn near instantaneously if we've provided them with a fair, consistent environment and in structure, and they understand that we are there for them. Then I think they are much more giving and willing to then say, yes, I am here for you, I am with you. And as long as they have that foundation, when I say foundation, a lot of people ask about groundwork. I think there's foundation groundwork, and then I think there is, advancing groundwork. And your foundation groundwork a lot of times is getting the horse's mind and their body, sometimes their emotions, and even sometimes their spirit in a healthy place. A lot of direction in helping these youngsters or even green horses or mishandled horses build that strong foundation in their lives, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And once those horses are in those places, in that headspace, and they're focused and they're relaxed and they're understanding, then and they're willing, then I think this becomes very, very possible for a lot of different horses. But I think it's us as people that sometimes hold back the possibility of this, because we can get into how glorified being busy is, and how even when we say we're there, I am guilty of this. Like, particularly, I'm way better about this with horses. And when I'm at a clinic, if you guys have ever been to a clinic, you notice, like, when I work with horses, I'm at clinics, I'm isolated. I don't answer my phone. I don't do anything else. Like, I am there with the people, I'm there with the horses, and that's what I do. But we're all humans, and I feel like I can share this, and there will be some people that chastise me for it, but I'm working on it. And it's the fact that even when I hardly realize it, there might be a small piece in my head being, gosh, I got to make this phone call or whatever. And I think a lot of us can relate to this, and I share this with you not as a vulnerability statement, but because I think that a lot of us struggle with this, and it's not talked about, and it needs to be talked about. And I think that it's those small pieces, even now, where I'm to the point where sometimes I feel like I'm 100% there and it's not clicking, it's not happening, and I'm not going to blame my horse for that necessarily, but I'm going to keep working on myself and keep getting myself better. And along the way, maybe what's the worst that could happen is maybe I could do something to help my horse with my horse in that moment, but I need observation. I need time to reflect on that, and I need time to spend with my horses to build that and make that possible. And in the meantime, I'm going to keep working on myself mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, so that maybe my awareness will reach enough of a level where I can help my horses. And then I can truly ask them to say, hey, can you give me your all? And, a lot of this has come about because I've done these Mustang makeover events, and those have been just pretty much life-changing. And I don't know if I've really used the term life-changing with those events, but I think it's fair to say, because it's sent me on quite a hell of a journey, particularly this second one that I just did earlier this year, where I've really started to change a lot of my lifestyle and the things that I do on a day-to-day basis. And I haven't always stuck to it. Like, I've gone back to old ways, and I've gone back to the stuff that's definitely worked, and I'm human. I'm just like all of you guys. But you can tell that you get closer to things because things start to click, and then you start to talk to people that there's a lot of people that practice a lot of the things that I've stumbled upon, that I was like, gosh, I wish you guys would have shared that. That would have been pretty helpful, because I would have given it a shot, because I look up to you. And if I would have known you guys were doing that, I probably would have given it a shot, because I do admire what you're doing. And they're just like, oh yeah, it's no big deal, it's just what we do. And I feel the same way, but I also feel that it's important to share some of this stuff with everybody, because if it helps one person out there along their journey, it was well damn worth putting it out there and sticking the neck on the line, essentially. So guys, just to kind of wrap this up, I think it's very fair to ask your horse to give their all. I think it just depends on where you're at and where your horse is at with things. And I think that it's not unreasonable to ask your horse to give a lot. We provide a lot for our horses. We give them new shoes every 6 to 8 weeks, right? We provide them with warm stalls and bedding, and we provide them with safety and shelter and their friends and hay and food and water, and they get bathed, and we provide them with a lot of care, a lot of time, a lot of passion, a lot of expense. We provide our horses with a lot, and And so when we look at this question, I don't want people to go, well, my life's a wreck. I shouldn't ask anything of my horse. I don't want anyone to take that approach. Okay. I would, if we're going, hey, my life's a wreck, or hey, I've got a lot of broken pieces I need to work on here, then I think that is a great first step of self-awareness. Because if you're not aware of that, it's hard to fix anything. And so if you're aware of like, hey, I really need to work on my physical physique because I just really lack some balance, or I lack some confidence because I know that my physical physique isn't quite what it could be or should be, then you can work on that. You can change that. And so you can start doing that. But then when you're with your horse, you can still you can ask them to be an athlete. And that's why I think when I said as a leader, we need to look at ourselves first. But at the same time, while you're working on yourself, your horse can be working too. And that means that there's a lot of things that we do outside of our horses that can then change the way we work with our horses. And it'll change the results we get with our horses. And so don't blame yourself for this, but because your horse needs to go to work too. Your horse is provided with all these things, and your horse needs to earn their keep. I firmly believe, because honestly, and it's not so much like, well, they owe us this. It's not so much of that, but I say they need to earn their keep because people say, how are you doing? I was like, oh, I'm doing pretty busy, and they're like, oh, that's good. I'm like, no, it just keeps me out of trouble. Right? And I think, like, when I think with a lot of our horses, it's kind of the same way. A lot of our horses are overfed and underworked. And I think that it's real important that we start to understand that they need a job. They need a purpose. They need to know why they do things, why they're asked to do things. And it can be fun. They can jump. They can go trail ride. They can do some cross country. They can do trail ride, like arena trail. They can work on dressage, or they can work on ranch horse things, or they can do whatever you would like them to do. They're your horses. And so, but I think that we can ask them to be athletes. We can ask them to be disciplined. We can ask them to be respectful. We can ask them to be willing and understand. We can ask them to do things that are difficult. And we can work with them on building discipline and a work ethic. And I think that a work ethic is not something that, I think it can be built. And I heard this from another horse trainer just about a week ago. And he was like, you can build a work ethic by just doing it slowly. You don't just get on them or start working them on the ground and ask them for everything they're capable of. You keep their sessions short, sweet, and focused. And then they might start at 15 minutes, and then they can do it for 30 minutes, and then they can do it for 45 minutes, and then they can go for an hour. And the work of what they're capable of becomes longer. Their mental focus becomes longer. But you have to look at where they're at mentally, physically, and emotionally, and spiritually. And we can ask them to give us their all based on what their all is, right? Some horses might be physically way more advanced, and they can give us way more physically. Some horses might be mentally way more advanced and physically not as developed. Well, we can ask them to be super focused and do not quite as strenuous work, and that's giving their all. So this isn't a flatline answer where they've got to give us 10 out of 10 all across the board, but understanding where your horse is at, and then saying, yeah, when I start colts a lot, sometimes they think that trotting or maybe cantering for the first time is a lot. For us, we know that it may not be a lot, but to that horse, that's everything they can do because they've never done it before. They've never carried a rider on their back. They've never had to canter 2 laps around the arena and try to maintain balance, and they've had to focus. And for young horses, sometimes that mental focus is more exhausting than the physical part of it. And when you can feel that even at that level they're giving their all, you can't ask for much more than that. And and that's on a surface level, right? Because when we started this video, we were talking about that mental connection. But we build that in there because we have to build that relationship. We build that partnership. We build that connection. And it kind of goes like that old Ray Hunt saying, first we go with them, then they go with us, and then we go together. And we got to go through that, and then we can start to build the possibility. We build the foundation for the connection, and we build what could make it possible. And then from there, we have to make sure that we're in the present and solely in the present. And I say that with a lot of like deep, I don't even know if empathy is the right word, but I say that in my for you guys that are watching the video, you guys hopefully can probably see like everything kind of changes because it's something that I am working on so much. Like when I say to be present, it's almost like everything goes quiet. And I become that much more present right here in this video with you guys versus thinking out in front, trying to make sure I have my thoughts in line so I can keep the video flowing, right? But right now, like as I said, like we need to be present with them. It's that reason we say take a deep breath. Like it really does do something in a biochemistry level, and we have to center ourselves and ground ourselves and with our horses. And a lot of times that can make all the difference. But guys, I hope that I've captured this in a good light as part of one of our difficult discussions and just tackling this topic of asking our horses to give our all. We're gonna keep putting this up. Like I said, you can find this on Facebook and our Facebook groups. You can find this on our YouTube channel where you can subscribe there, and you'll be able to see all of our videos. You'll be able to find this on. This one's not going to go on Instagram TV because it's too long, but then we'll also be putting this on our podcast as an episode because I want these to be discussions that you guys can listen to going down the road. So, guys, again, always appreciate y'all tuning in. I hope that you found this insightful and helpful. And if you have something that you're wondering about that might be a difficult topic, difficult discussion of any type, we always welcome you to send those to us, whether through a direct message or you can email us at office.coltonwoodshorsemanship@gmail.com, and you can send those as a video request, and we're always happy to make those happen for you guys. So we look forward to riding with you guys down the road and helping you and your horses along your journey and educating horses and people with a lifetime in mind. So wishing y'all a blessed rest of your day, and be sure to share this with your friends if you found it helpful, guys. All right, thank y'all. Take care.